Well, you remember that one time. I think it was last summer when I was sitting on the front steps and there was a bee just laying on the sidewalk. And it was shortly after they come around in the late spring or the middle of the spring and they spray.
Yeah.
To get rid of all the bees. And I'm sitting on the steps and there's this bee laying on the ground and it's obviously dying. And it's obviously dying because it was poisoned. It's not the end. It's not the natural end of its life. It's just laying there. And I was watching it and I thought, bees don't have brains or consciousness or at least as far as like any human, like, right. But yet what's it like? And and it's not like I could feel any empathy for the bee or anything like that, but I just watched it and I'm like, all right, it's a bee and it's trying to do bee things, but it can't, because its body is moving like it's trying to do whatever it does, but it can't. And then I thought, right? The bees are inconvenient because they buzz around the doors and people don't like that. So let's just kill them. But never mind the fact that they're pollinating and, all the stuff that helps the wider biosphere.
Yeah, and actually you just reminded me of like one of the things that she talks about in the book that I found very interesting about like the bee communication, how like the bee will go find, a source of food, pollen, and or I think the nectar actually, but anyways, they just happen to grab the pollen and flow it around. But anyways, the thing that I found was interesting was they would go find a flower or whatever, a bunch of flowers and food, and then come back to the beehive and they would do a dance to the other bees and they initially, it's like that weird pattern that we probably seen them do it, but it was actually, anyways, they found out when they were studying them that the angle and the length of the dance was actually them communicating what the angle was to the sun. So if they were at like a 30-degree angle, like tilting their bodies at a 30-degree angle, that meant you need to keep the sun at a 30-degree angle from the sun, and then the distance or the length of time that they did it was the actual distance. So if like, I think in her example, it was, if they did it for 1 second, that was like 1,000 meters away, or whatever. So it's like, and the angle was, so it's just, yeah, they're thinking something. Well,
they're communicating.
So there's some level,
and that's the counterexample to the human exceptionalism. Like